Well, thank you all for coming out. My name is Jeet Sandhu. I'm actually on the library board here. I want to welcome everyone here and giving up part of their afternoon to see what I think is going to be a very illustrative and informative documentary with conversation to follow. As the first event the library is having with Ekta, which is a great organization which basically promotes and nurtures public interest in the Indian community and the Indo-American culture. So thank you for sharing in that also. On behalf of the library, which is also a big fundamental nonprofit organization here in town, I want to thank you for supporting the library. The library itself obviously does a lot of nurturing here and promotes learning, promotes inquisition, or learning, looking at things. How's that?
Enjoyment.
Oh, enjoyment, absolutely. Questioning, creating a community, and meeting people. So hopefully you have an opportunity to do a lot of that here today. The library puts on almost 1,500 programs like this every year, almost all of which at no charge. So as a result, the library itself requires and relies on a lot of community support also here to promote what it does along with the programs. In addition to the programs, there are almost 221,000 patrons that visit the library every year. Over 330,000 items are checked out and used here annually. I think 34,000 people attend programs here at the library every year. So everyone may not know it, but a third of the budget of the library requires community support and philanthropic support. So anything you guys can do to help support the library in its mission of creating a learning environment, a meeting environment, an environment where we can all get together and meet one another and learn about things such as this, please do. We're always happy. Anyone that is interested in learning more about the library, please give us a call. And Andy, Brenda, and myself, one of us will be more than happy to give you a tour of the library and let you know what it's really all about. As a first-generation immigrant myself, I think stories about immigrants, immigration policy are really powerful and impactful. So I'm very happy to be able to be a part of this event here and hopefully many, many more events with Ekta and the library. So I'd like to introduce Garvey, who's one of the board of directors on the board of Ekta itself, to continue the conversation. Please. And thank you again for coming and being part of the library.
I'm not as eloquent as he is, so I need my piece of paper. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all of you to this unique film screening jointly hosted by Ridgefield Library and Ekta Community Center. Ekta means unity in a number of Indian languages, so we chose that because we want to highlight the unity in diversity. The film is called Alien, American Dream Denied, and chronicles the emotional journeys of a handful of high-skilled Indian immigrants in the US who are here on temporary work visas, but are awaiting decisions on their applications for permanent residence in this country. Beautifully made by one of our own Connecticut resident, Vidyut Latay, whom we have the honor of having with us today. So I want to Last year, when we saw this movie in Stanford, after we saw that, Sangeeta, our president, Naresh, who's our board member, and I approached the library to see if we could do something similar here. And we were just floored by their energetic and enthusiastic response to our request. So that's how we all are here today, because this is a beautiful partnership we are beginning with this event here. I'd particularly like to call out Andy, Lucy, and Michaela, who have made this afternoon possible for all of us. Ekta Community Center is a new nonprofit in town, and we have the goal of bringing together the Indian American and broadly the South Asian community here around here. And we want to serve as a hub for community building, enrichment, cross-cultural exchange, volunteering, support services. So we have a lot of activities that we plan around these goals. Through this screening, which is part of our awareness and educational initiatives, we are shining the light both on the talent that exists in our community, as well as on the lives and experiences of many families amongst us, as you will see today. There are many families like the ones that are profiled in this movie that you're about to see, and we hope that through this film, we are lifting up their voices for the rest of us. Following the screening, there will be a fantastic discussion. We will have Vidyut Latay in conversation with Ekta Dixit, who is a Ridgefield-based immigration attorney, and Raman Sehgal, who is also a Connecticut resident. He, outside his day job, is a podcast host of Modern Minorities. It's a very highly acclaimed one if you want to check it out on Apple Podcasts. So all three of them, a stellar slate of Connecticut talent, is going to add value and context to what you've just seen. So following the discussion, we also have some hot chai and some snacks. So we hope you will stick around for that too. It's from Dabewala in Stamford. We're happy to bring a bit of Stamford's Indian cuisine here. On behalf of ECC, I thank you all for being here today and showing your interest in learning about this issue. I thank all the panelists and of course the Ridgefield Library for this partnership. ECC has a lot of activities planned for the rest of the year, but that can wait. We hope to see you at one or more of them, but for now it's time for Alien. Thank you.
So first I'd like to welcome to the stage the director of the film you just saw. And also joining us is Ekta Dixit. And on the back here, reference. Yeah. So hi again, everyone. We hope you enjoyed today's screening of Indian and American Dream Denied, Vidyut Latay's acclaimed immigration documentary, which again, this is now the third time I've seen this, and I sat in the back, I watched the whole thing again because so many things came to me as I was watching it. But again, for all y'all in the audience, especially if you want to share this with other people, I encourage you to watch it again on PBS, you can stream it on Tubi, you can stream it on Amazon, it's out there. So my name is Raman. Beyond being a local father from just down the road, I'm the host of a podcast on Modern Minorities, focused on minority voices for all of our majority years. And now that we've just finished experiencing Alien together, we want to continue this conversation in the documentary. So I'm pleased to kind of have this conversation with our panel. So first and foremost, Vidyut, thank you so much for joining us. She's the director of Alien American Dream Denied. She's an award-winning documentary filmmaker. Her work is screened on PBS and film festivals around the world. Our award-winning documentaries Beyond Her Own, Beyond Silence, as well as having done work on Waiting for Superman and Kailash. And back in India, you were an acclaimed executive producer for some of the biggest networks in India, which I think is super cool. And you also happen to be a mom. Yes. I missed anything? I got it all?
No.
I got the big ones, right? We're also excited to have Ekta Dixit, the principal and founding attorney of the Dixit law firm for immigration and nationality law. Ekta has worked exclusively in immigration law for over a decade. She worked at major New York City law firms before starting her own firm in Ridgefield back in 2013. She has extensive experience in family-based and employment-based petitions, as well as humanitarian immigration law. Ekta, thank you for joining us. So I want to kind of react to the documentary. I want to talk about the documentary itself. Of all the stories and stats that we just kind of saw, well, actually, before we even do that, I have to ask, Vidyut, why did you have to do this?
Yeah, I'm glad. Well, thank you so much everyone for coming here. And before even I start answering the question, a big shout out to the Ridgefield Library, Ekta Foundation, Ekta Community Center. And to each and every one of you, trust me, this means a lot. And thank you, Ekta, and thank you, Raman. And last but not least, I should definitely mention, I don't know if Hannah Ikramati is here, because she gave such a fantastic, coverage for the screening today. So if you're here or, somebody can convey it or I'll convey it. So yeah, to answer your question, why did I make this film? I made it because of this title itself, Alien.
Right.
So in 2006, I married this wonderful man sitting there, Ram, that's my husband. And we decided to move to the US, and he was already here on an H-1B visa, working in Silicon Valley. And he knew I had a thriving media career in India. And he asked me a very serious question, which I did not find difficult at all to answer. He said, are you sure? I'm on H-1B and you are going to come here on H-4. Are you sure you want to move to US?
That's the spouse visa.
Yeah, that's a spouse visa. And I said, of course, why not? And he said, well, I'm ready to move back to India if you want. I'm like, no, don't worry. The unknowns don't really scare me. I can come there. Come on, let me just try it out. How bad can it be? Well, you saw the film, so I'll not get into the details. So we got married in 2006 and came to San Francisco International Airport in February. And as soon as you disembark, as you all know, you have to clear the immigration. So the first and foremost thing that I saw, when I reached the immigration, there were two distinct queues, right? One is labeled US citizens. Of course, we don't belong there. And the other was labeled aliens. And I still, being a filmmaker, I still remember that moment, very cinematic moment, that I just froze in that moment. And we were newlyweds, so my husband was extra polite, extra nice. He's like, are you okay? What happened? I'm like, aliens? What the heck? Who are aliens? And he's a very practical person. He's like, that's us, immigrants. Can we just get going now? We have to clear immigration. Do you see the line? We have to clear the baggage. We have to get the baggage. We have to travel 45 minutes to Santa Clara. So that was the trigger, So it, like Maya Angelou has very famously said, people will forget what you did, right? And what is it that how
you make people feel.
How you make people feel, right? So that was exactly the moment, because what I felt was unwanted, unwelcome. So that was the trigger. And then I started being a filmmaker. I started working on the issue of H-4 visas. But then very, very soon I realized that this whole broken immigration system is like a, it's like a Pandora's box. It's like a magnum opus. It's a big drama. You take one thing off and it peels into several layers, which are as complicated as they can be. So I completely tabled that project and came back to this project actually in 2015 when we got our green cards, because it literally, I was compelled to make this film all the more after getting green cards, because very easily our diaspora gets divided into these haves and have-nots, I call it. People who get the green cards, get citizenship, they move on, they are done and dusted, and justifiably they have the reasons for that, because they've gone through so much.
It's not euphoria, it's relief.
Yeah, it's like relief. You're right. It's not euphoria. They're like, I'm done with it. I don't even want to revisit this. However, currently there are like 1.2 million immigrants, Indian immigrants, stuck in the green card backlog. And I just felt, these stories are needed to be told, because, in the mainstream public discourse, you always hear a statistics, 1.2 million immigrants, but who are these people? I really wanted to put a face on those statistics, and that's why I made this film.
Of kind of
That was a long
all,
answer.
yeah, no, it's of all the stories and stats of folks that we got to kind of see, and that's what I really appreciate about this film. It wasn't stats. There was a lot of facts, and I found myself like writing things down the first couple times I watched it. But these are people. These behind every stat are real people. I would love to hear kind of what both of you found the most surprising when you first learned about it. Ekta, I would imagine as an immigration lawyer, this is your everyday. So, and it's not just one person's experience. You're dealing with this. What jumped out at you first when you saw this? Does this ring pretty much true to all of your clients?
Yes, the age out scenario, that's really difficult because, when you're 21, you're not really financially, you can't really be on your own. Mostly you're finishing up school, so it's kind of hard to have to go out on your own visa and not be able to get a green card through your parents, and then have to go through the immigration process yourself. And also, if you're really tied to your job. So if you lose your job, you basically have 60 days to kind of pack up and go. And people have homes here, and the kids are, in the middle of midterms, gotta go. So it is really tough. And yeah, I do deal with that every day. Yeah, the different stories. I thought the movie did a really good job at showcasing the stories of the people.
Vidyut, I mean, I remember when we first started talking about this, you started with this conversation with some friends, starting with the H4, but what was surprising for you?
Yeah, you know what, there was it's a very emotional moment because the very first story that you saw, I know it was a lot to pack in.
The parents
So,
and their
aging out kids, you know,
Yeah,
Sita,
yeah.
you know, the girl who's going to turn 21 in 3 months, you know. So you'll be surprised to know that family had never, ever openly spoken about that child will someday have to leave the country. It was only when I went there and I started asking them questions, they started opening up among themselves too. They had never spoken about it, and that's why, you know, the mom and dad, they later on confessed that, you know, it was a very therapeutic moment for us. Like, we had never spoken about this whole issue as a family. And in fact, when they got the green card, you know, Sita's mom sent me such a beautiful message that she said, we just let those emotions out. You know, we kind of did that cleansing ourselves because we were carrying that baggage for so many years, ever since they, you know, came to the US. So I felt, you know, I mean, that was a beautiful moment because I here as a filmmaker, I was all ready, you know, I had already spoken to a cameraman in Chicago. I said, hey, you know, there's a family in Bloomington. There's a possibility just one day before, because they had already booked the tickets to go to India.
Sure.
Had she not received the, the green card. So I had already done all that as a filmmaker, but as a human being, I was so happy for them. I said, that's fine, I have to cancel all my bookings, but, you know, they got the green card. So I think that was one of the most reflective moments. And even shooting with Sunaina. Because, you know, Sunaina, when I spoke to her,
Sunaina's the widow.
The last story, yeah, about, you know, the widow, yeah, who lost her husband because of a white supremacist. Yeah, I think that was also one of the most, I would say one of the most difficult story to shoot. Because since it's an indie film, as you can imagine, because of budget constraints and all, we shot that entire story in one day. And so in one day, it was like a roller coaster ride of emotions that she had to go through. Like, you know, she had to tell me everything about her family, her upbringing, her, you know, good days with her husband, you know. And in the last shot, I still remember when she opened her, you know, wedding album. It was like at 10:30 in the night, we were talking about it, and it was just barrage of emotions. I was teary-eyed, but I was trying to be very stoic, very composed, because I was filming her, and I knew this was the only moment. Next day I had to catch my flight.
Right.
And I couldn't ask her to extend the shoot, you know, when she's going through herself, you know. But just kudos to all the characters in the film. I think they are really brave hearts, because we have to remember that it's not easy to talk about immigration, because people are scared, inherently scared, especially when they are stuck in the green card backlog. See, now all these people are out, you know, and now, you know, in fact, Sudarshana is going to be a citizen on March 18th. So they have started, you know, navigating their part to their American dream by being a citizen. But yeah, I mean, that's why it's, for me, it's entirely, the film is very special because none of the characters had received their green cards, but they were just voicing out their true emotions. And trust me, it feels very, you know, easy, and they're composed and they're very honest, but it's really not an easy thing to do. You know, you normally wouldn't even confess about or talk about these things to your own family members, your extended family back home in India. Forget about it, because they only get to know, oh, you don't come to India that often, I know, now you're in the US, you don't want to visit your, you know, so there are all these, myths associated with it. There are lots of doubts, there's a lot of confusion. So I'm kudos to all these characters. Without these characters, there's no film.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, what experience I had with friends in these different visa situations, be they Indian, Chinese, Venezuelan. It's always been just this kind of a technical, you'll get it sorted out.
Yeah.
And to kind of hear the emotional journey, they were all emotional journeys, but the front and the first story, the family with the teenagers, and the final one, the founder of Forever Welcome, were just these kind of visceral experiences, because it's, no matter whatever any of our statuses are as citizens, green card holders, visitors on a visa, it was like, in an instant, a life event that could happen to any of us in an alternate universe could just rip you out of it. Like, I remember in, it's called the 9/11 era, right, where a lot of not so nice things were said to many people. Hearing "go back to your country," I was like, I don't know how to go back to India. Like, I'm here. I don't speak that much Punjabi. I would be a fish out of water there. And there's just so much nuance, which is kind of troubling that we kind of water over the nuance of what these folks are dealing with.
And that's, sorry, just
please.
to add to Ekta,
Yeah.
what you said, that's the most disturbing part about the aging out kids. I mean, trust me, this is such a horrific thing that's happening, that kids are asked to self-deport to a country they had no idea about. I mean,
That's not even with H-1Bs.
like
That's
she has
across,
no
yeah.
idea what India is all about. You know, she's only been there as
A visitor. Yeah.
as a grandkid, visiting her grandparents. That's it. But now she has to permanently self-deport herself. And if she gets a F1 visa, luckily, she can come here. But then she again gets stuck in the same green card
Sure.
mess. So yeah.
We were talking about this earlier on a previous conversation, and I kind of want to address a little bit of the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The current administration, how do you see the journey of your documentary taking form? Not just the journey of the folks who are impacted by it, but the receptivity. I always ask this question to someone who makes something like this. What's the reception to this? I mean, are people cool with this? Are people like alarmed, pushing back? The current environment, the current administration, how does this impact this?
Well, I would welcome if the current administration is interested in watching the film and really understanding what the high-scale immigration issue is. So if anybody has any connections, please reach out to me. Well, what I mean to say is that, okay, so let me set the stage, and maybe Ekta, you can empathize with this, that with every new administration, immigrants build new hopes, right?
You showed all the clips, all the speeches.
Yeah,
they all said all the words.
Okay, I mean, for immigrants, it's like whether it's a Biden administration, whether it's a Trump administration, I mean, to each his own, of course, everybody has their ideologies, their values, to whom they,
Sure.
support. That's a different thing. But when it comes to immigrants, especially who are on visas and on green card backlogs, every new administration is like, okay, let's see what Trump has to offer. It sounded very well intentioned, right? They really were talking in support of legal immigration, high-scale immigration, and I would love to see that. But what's happening is that I think it's important to watch a film like this, or at least get educated about it, because when I see, right now what's happening in the news, it's like barrage of things that probably, as a filmmaker who has, and as an immigrant who has lived with this, for the past 19 years, I just completed 19 years in this country, I literally feel, but you know what, we are talking about specific issue. These are all people who are already in this country. They have already been approved for green card. We are not talking about immigrants who are wanting to come here, travel, oceans or climb mountains, and who are just wanting to enter this country anyhow. We are not talking about those people. So when it comes to high-skilled immigration issue, there are some really very specifics. If the administration, or if anybody having a well-intentioned mind to really solve this issue, understands, gets educated, and that's why I think the common public, have a major role to play. Because then when we, if we get educated by this, when we understand what really, and for me also it was a big education, despite me going through our visa hurdles and issues, every immigrant has a story to tell. Every H1, H4 visa combination has a story to tell. So I really think for the current administration, my biggest request is that please solve the issue, please solve the problem at hand, and that is the broken immigration system because of the green card backlog. Because these people are already in the country, they are already doing good jobs, they are thriving, they want to do so much for the community. They are law-abiding, tax-paying residents of this country. Don't make their lives difficult after you have let them come in, after you have approved them for green cards, right? That's a specific issue. And of course, immigration is not just this one issue. But unless you fix this issue, you're not going to, because you understand that if you don't fix this issue, you're going to not even solve the problem that will happen with the American labor market. Because this issue affects the American labor market directly. Because if you are having immigrants languishing for, as you heard, like 10 years, in a position, not getting a pay hike, right?
They're keeping people.
Right. So then this whole perception, and they are easily made a scapegoat, right? Immigrants are taking away job. There are good apples and bad apples. I agree. However, if you're not letting people get out of this backlog, thrive on their own, get their green cards, become citizens, how are you going to let other people, local Americans, take those jobs, right? And then the blame comes on immigrants. But let's understand, there are a lot of vested interests. There are good corporations and bad corporations also. And H1B is not owned by an individual. It is owned by the corporation, the company, who is hiring the immigrants.
That was something that was really troubling to me. Again, with my friends who've been through this, as an outsider looking in, this is just paperwork, but, and I think it was Gira, she didn't quite say it, but what I thought, I think his spouse said something about the mistress thing, but to me it's almost like indentured servitude.
It is.
We want as many H-1Bs, don't worry about the green card. Ekta, I have to ask, as someone actively in the space, how are people feeling right now? How are they being impacted by the changing climate?
So there's a lot of fear, which wasn't there in the previous administration. And I agree with you that it is a broken, system. But I feel like currently a lot of people are taking a closer look at their current immigration status. So maybe, if someone was a permanent resident, green card holder for maybe 20 years and never thought about becoming a U.S. citizen, it was just didn't occur to them. Now they're like, okay, well, 4 years and 9 months, when do I send in my, application? And people that were here, they were kind of okay on a non-immigrant status. I recently had a case, someone, he felt comfortable on his non-immigrant status. He was married to a U.S. citizen for a while, and he just never thought about filing for his green card.
Yeah.
But now he's like, no, I think I need to file for my green card. It's the wiser decision. So I get busier, depending on the administration. So right now we're very busy. We're trying to just ease everybody's
Anxieties, I guess.
yeah.
It's a little dialed up. How, why should folks, whether you're a Daisy, which is a brown person, for Pakistan, or candidly anyone else in this room, like, regardless of your status, I guess a quick question, like, how many, the airplane story sticks with me. Like, I don't carry any papers with me. I can't carry my driver's license. Half the time I forget about that, right? Like, the in a plane, everyone reaching for their papers. Like, I can't imagine having to just carry paperwork with me. I don't think so.
It's your lifeline.
Yeah, but what can all of us do? How can we change our thought process around the American immigration experience, specifically in high skilled labor, et cetera? Like, what can we learn and reapply here? Ekta, any thoughts?
I think a lot of the individuals that were showcased in the movie, they really went to Congress and made their voice heard. Sunena, she opened a nonprofit, so I think that is really important to be informed and to get your voice out there. And we were talking about this earlier, how it's important to keep, hold politicians accountable,
Right.
So they can stay in office until they're doing the job. So I think it's okay to reach out to your congressional representatives, even sometimes when there are certain cases where they should have been approved, but they're way outside of processing times. We tell people, at our firm, reach out to your local congressional representative to kind of help you.
Any thoughts?
I completely agree. In fact, I really feel, there is empowerment in collaboration. Just one film or one article cannot really move the needle. But I do feel you can use this as a tool. I'm not saying just because, please ask your friends and family to watch the film. Of course, that as a filmmaker, I would always love it. Sure. But it is an issue-based film because there are lives at stake, right? People are, when they lose jobs, so many layoffs happening, and when the spouse dies, the family, it's just inhuman. It's beyond common sense. So I really feel there is a lot of empowerment in getting educated and really doing something about it. Like, use this as a tool to educate, watch, discuss about this, have empathy, build, really get to know what exactly the high-skill immigration issue is. It is not about getting more people in this country. It is not, so that's why, in fact, everybody should question politicians when they start talking about, oh yes, we want US to progress in science and technology, and that's why we should have more H-1Bs. No, we don't need more H-1Bs. Please, that's the easiest way, because, H-1Bs are with corporations. There are vested interests there. We need people to get out of green card backlogs, right? That is the most important thing. And that's why I think, and then, for organizations like Ekta, right? Ekta Community Center and Ridgefield Library. So you have a film, like when I discussed with Bhargavi, you have a film, you have a product ready here. We need, people to support it, right? So if somebody has done something, please, lend a helping hand. Go. I mean, that's why kudos to all of you for coming here on a cold Sunday afternoon and braiding an immigration film. It really means a lot, because I can totally imagine that each one of you is a unique ambassador of this film. In some shape or form, probably you'll go and discuss about it. And that's how, unless you make it a mainstream issue, because what happens at some time, the advocacy groups are working on their own.
Sure.
There are foundations working on their own. But these are very scattered efforts. I think we really need to it has to be a cohesive effort. And that's why screenings like this help. So I really believe in, power of people. So, and that's why, reaching out to senators. People need to know that you can actually write to senators, make them accountable, ask Congress, why are you not passing those bills that we showed in the film that could have elevated, all these problems, elevated immigrants of all these problems. So yeah, those are some of the actionable steps I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is just me being a cynic, and it's hard not to be sometimes, but like, we all feel a catharsis. I call it the Jon Stewart effect. When you watch something like this, you have a cry, a laugh, whatever, and then you just, okay, well, I did it, slacked it, it's a yellow bracelet on my hand, I'm done. And I think the real thing is getting off the sidelines. Like, as my opinion of not just the empathy of my friends and family members who are going through, it's a technicality, it'll get sorted out, but to understand the human cost of these things, and then take that human story, not like I'm going to work tomorrow in my day job, which is not doing stuff like this, and bringing this up in conversation over lunch with people who are not Indian, people who are not impacted by immigration, and it's kind of spreading it, and I'm reminded of the film Dune. The author Frank Herbert had a quote. It's something about leaders and accountability. Like, we have to elevate those who are hopefully uncomfortable with power. That part is done, but once they are in power, you have to keep them in check with this accountability. We have a problem. We have to solve the problem.
Yeah.
We've got a few minutes left. I kind of want to open up. Are there any questions or thoughts from the room that you'd like to ask either of our esteemed panelists? Please.
So many.
Yeah.
Before I get to that, I just want to say that congratulations. I know, I was a filmmaker, I know what you're going through.
Thank you.
In the middle of the film, there was like a moment of a meditation where somebody just said, just breathe. I think we need to repeat it at the end of the credits so we can all have that, because I am like in a knot. That's just number one. Your take on like the current administration is vague. Because I can understand that, and I don't want to offend anybody, for sure. But I did see, you're talking about these H-1Bs, and you don't want them.
Yeah.
But Elon Musk, who's an unelected person, I watched him say, oh, we want more. We want to bring in these people because we can keep them in these jobs, these very talented people. We don't have to pay them that much. That is what I see, and I don't feel hopeful in that respect.
Yeah, but completely I understand, but that's why I was emphasizing that when you want to solve legal, high-skilled immigration issue, I really doubt how many people really know what the issue is, because they feel, oh, that means H-1B visa. No, H-1B, you ask all these participants when I was asking them, so how was it getting H-1B? It was not an issue at all. Nobody had a problem getting H-1B. So why are they emphasizing on getting more H-1, more H-1s? It's about the green card. Because understand, all these people with qualifications and who have aspirations to open shops or open companies, you don't want to give that freedom to them. So when Elon Musk or anybody else is asking for more H-1s, I would really like to know whether he really knows about green card backlog.
Who, Elon Musk?
I don't know.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's good for him.
So we
But
need
you
to
get
care enough
really
for him to
talented
know.
people working in lower paying jobs, doing great jobs, and they can't get out of it.
Or you keep them at level, indentured servitude, and you're kind of held hostage by your job.
And then I had one other question.
Please.
This is India, that Indian population coming in here.
Yeah.
What is the backlog with other, is it the same in all, like, let's say Canadians, I don't know how many people.
May I jump in?
But what, are they still in that same backlog?
No, so there's each country can bring a certain amount of number of people. So the more immigrants that come from one country, that's what creates the backlog. So India, the Philippines, Mexico, these are the countries that have more of a backlog, and then there's all chargeability, which means most of the other countries.
Can you talk to the 7%?
Yeah, so there is the 7% per country cap. Now, understand,
7% per
per
country cap?
country cap for getting green cards, okay? Now, just park that.
What's the total size of the pie really quick?
Just for example, like, 140, let's talk only about employment-based green cards, let's not get into family because this film is about employment-based green cards. So there are 140,000 employment-based green cards allotted every year. So just do the math, 7% is around like 9,800, green cards are allotted for every country. So there is a joke. Any kid who right now is born in Iceland, he or she is guaranteed a green card once the parent or once the family moves here, because there is no backlog, right? But that 9,800, that number for a populous country like India or China or Philippines or Mexico, that has grown so much that the backlog is up to 195 years. But remember one thing, see, this is the cap. Let's get a little deeper. There is no 7% or any quota for getting H-1Bs and F-1s. So you let immigrants from populous countries come in as many numbers as you want.
Where there's a product market fit.
Correct,
We have skills
because-
that we need and people with skills coming over.
Yeah, 85,000 is the overall H-1B cap, you're right. But there is no rule that says no, but even if we have 85,000 H-1B visa percent Brits will take, no. So there is no per country quota for H-1Bs, F-1s, or any other visas. The country cap is established only when you get green cards.
So an H-1B visa, as long as you are working with the same company, you can stay indefinitely?
No, after 6 years, you have to renew it if you have applied for a green card,
So,
right?
so after you've had it for 6 years, you have an option of staying out of the country for a year, out of the US, and then you can apply to the lottery again. And then, or the other option, which happens with most people, is they go through the green card process, the first part of it, and then once that's approved, then they can renew the H-1B indefinitely until they have a green card.
Until 293 years?
Yes, and they don't have to stay with the same employer. It is difficult though to find an H-1B.
We've got, yeah, that's a great question, great
Thank you
discussion.
for asking.
We've got
This
time
is what
for
I
about-
want actually. I'm glad you're asking, right?
We've got time for about 1 or 2 more questions. Gentlemen in the back.
Does Forever Welcome have a website?
Yes, they do. Now they do have a website. When I shot with her, Sunaina, they were working on, getting it all up and running. So yes, it's www.foreverwelcome.com.
And you can donate to them on the website?
Yeah, you can. Sorry, you saying
Donations.
You can, yeah, you can donate. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Sir in the back in the red shirt.
Oh, me?
Red shirt, yeah.
Somebody else in the red shirt. So the 7% cap, if I'm not wrong, like 10 or 15 years back, if there was an overflow, say other countries hadn't used their 7%, and you still had some green cards left over, then they could be used for other countries. Now, if I'm not wrong, in the Obama administration, they changed that rule, or they stopped kind of using the overflow. I just want to check on that because I was told that by somebody else. Because
So
I didn't hear about that.
yeah, I also haven't heard about it. And in fact, that is the biggest ask, from immigrants who are currently stuck in this green card backlog, because there are lots of green cards that every year go waste, right?
In 2020, because of COVID, family-based people weren't able to come in because of the restrictions on travel. So that's when the visa bulletin moved a lot at that time, because they were able to use the family-based.
and then it retrogressed for 3 years
Yeah.
in 21.
Sir?
I'm not sure about the lot. Can you explain a bit more about the lottery? You talk about a lottery that they have to go into.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
so it starts in March. It starts March 7th this year. So there's about 85,000 individuals so there's 20,000 set aside if you have a U.S. master's degree, and 65,000 for the regular cap. So each year, the U.S. grants 85,000 H-1B visas. And you have to get selected for the lottery to get it. You apply on the USCIS website. If you get selected, then the company can petition for you. The company has to petition for you for the lottery. So let's say I'm looking for an H-1B employer, then the company petitions for me, and then if I get selected, then I can start working in October.
So even if you have a guaranteed sponsor from the company,
That's
that's not a
correct.
guarantee you'll get it, you have to go to a lottery.
That's correct, yeah.
And the other thing,
How the lottery is just completely by chance, it's not
Yeah.
like based on
Yes.
merit.
Mhm. Well, except the US Masters, they set aside 20,000 for the US Masters, and for an H-1B, it's a specialized position, so you have to have a minimum of a US bachelor's degree in the job that you want.
kind of an anecdote though. So I started my career in corporate America, where when these kind of deadlines and application things happen, the corporations, we are armed and ready with all the paperwork, ready to go. We hire great law firms to run and gun. So big companies have this advantage. I've now been in venture-backed tech startups for about 10 years. We are at a disadvantage, right? Because we don't have the resources to compete with a Microsoft. So as you think about like the kind of cliche of small businesses in America, never mind if you're a tech company, if you're some other company, an entertainment company, et cetera, it's like you are at a disadvantage. The system is stacked against small and mid-sized businesses to even participate. And never mind the stories from the innovation that's happening, the people who want to found new companies and new ideas, they're literally constrained by where we are.
Right, because Microsoft, for example, can put 300 individuals, for example, through the lottery where they can maybe put just one, so it's harder to get things.
Time for one more question, please.
Thank you. So I'm just as a disclaimer, I'm on the board of directors of Connecticut Student Surgery, and I also work with Greater Danbury Unites for Immigrants. And, you know, I'm also a professor at West Con. I specialize in immigration. One of the things that I keep seeing over and over again is the problems that are upheld with policy and the lack of change. These wait lists that are lasting, you know, in the film it was 15-ish years, right? A former student of mine's brother just got his papers. He waited 30 years. 30 years. So what I'm trying to communicate is that this is not just an H-1B problem. That I see real benefit from creating alliances between the H-1B crowd, and as a professor, I have many friends who are on H-1Bs who have struggled. That could have been in your film. And many alliances possible between these two crowds, and more than you can imagine. Just because people are undocumented does not mean that they're low skilled, for example. I would just welcome, if anybody's interested, I have a QR code if anybody does want to get involved with the Greater Danbury Alliance. We welcome the alliance, and I guess my question too, I'm not sure who could best answer it, is how do we best move this along? What are what's going on in the H-1B world? That's not a world I dip into too often. Where's the action happening there? How can we build an alliance here to push this along? Because you're totally right, it's a horrible problem, and families on both sides of the spectrum are suffering.
Well, it's a thought. It's kind of like, what is a point of action?
Yeah. Congress is really, you know, congressional representatives. As you see, the current administration tried to do a lot of things through the executive system, but some of them got shut down. And I just have to say, it's so difficult. You know, it is a broken system. For example, in one of the administrations, they said, okay, there are people coming back and forth too much. So they started this law where if you overstay for more than 180 days and you go back, then there's a 3-year bar till you can come back. And then if you stay for more than a year, then there's a 10-year bar before you can come back. And they were trying to do this to stop people from going back and forth too much. But then people kind of felt stuck. Okay, now if I go back, I can't come back. So it really is such a broken
It is
system.
hope to be undocumented.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd like to kind of close somewhat optimistically. What's one thing that gives both of you hope for the journey of all of us? And again, it's not just those who are high-skilled, documented, waiting on a green card. It's all of us, right? Ekta? What gives you
Yeah,
hope?
I think one thing that gives me hope is to know that nothing is permanent, you know? And we do have, we're still in a democracy, we have power to vote people in and out. And I think just getting involved and staying informed are the best ways to proceed. And that we have a voice that we can, you know, get out there and do things.
Yeah, for me, I think the ability to amplify these voices and not normalize them, you know, not just accept this is how it's meant to be, if you want to pay in US, no, it's not, it shouldn't be like this. Nobody should be going through, you know, decades and decades of wait time just to become an American citizen after you've been approved. So for me, the ability to amplify these voices that we've so worked on for almost 7 years, just making this film, and we all in some shape or form, you know, have gone through it as an immigrant. So I think that gives me hope. You know, just the ability to sit here, discuss, agree to disagree, and yeah, come up with ways of, you know, how we can align better, collaborate better. That gives me absolute amazing hope. I'm an internal optimist. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I think that's about as great a place to end things. Special thanks to everyone at the Ekta Community Center and the Ridgefield Library for hosting us, as well as Ekta, Vidyut, and all of you for joining us and just being as engaged. And please let's continue the engagement, the conversation, and grab a cup of chai together.